Well, we knew it wasn't always going to be that easy for Jacob Misiorowski. He kind of spoiled us with his first three starts. We'll get into it coming up next in this edition of Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rough one for Miserowski, going up the learning tree a little bit on Wednesday night after the Brewers won that first game against the Mets earlier in the day on Wednesday. I was like, man, we got greedy, looking for the sweep. The Mets were struggling, and Miserowski did not have a good day. And the Brewers end up with a split in New York. Hey, everybody, Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin. Proud host of Locked On Brewers with these. Some people ask me if these pink glasses were Shannon's. No, they're not. Long story, but they are not. This episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up here on the show today, we'll talk to Jacob Misiorowski. We're going to get into that, review the doubleheader a little bit. Brandon Woodruff is coming back. Finally, we got a date. It looks pretty good that he's going to start this weekend against Miami. We'll get to all that. Blake Perkins is ready to come off the injured list, but are the Brewers ready for him? All that and more coming up. But we got to start with Miserowski here. Miserowski had a rough one, to say the least. And yeah, after the Brewers won that first game on Wednesday, I'm thinking, oh, great. Miserowski, if the Brewers can get a little bingo going behind him. But I just had a feeling that in one of these next couple of starts, he was going to travel up the learning tree a little bit. See, what happens here is there's so much analytics. And I'm going to say this is part on Miserowski and part of the Mets too. There's so much analytics and these coaches and all that. There's so much information to go on these days for opponents. And there's breakdowns of the strike zone and weaknesses and strengths and all that and certain tendencies. There is so much more of that analytical stuff going on. There's guys with every organization who sit up in their ivory towers, as Pat Murphy likes to talk about, and they break this stuff down. Every team has them. The New York Mets are no exception. And they did a nice job. They had some nice at-bats against Miserowski, and he was a little off kilter a little bit and gave up a 5-run second inning, gave up a grand slam, back-to-back home runs, a 5-run second inning, and by the third inning, it was lights out for him. Now, you could tell by the second inning that the velo, and they were mentioning it, Jeff and Vinny were mentioning it on the broadcast, the velo was dipping down in the second inning a little bit. He wasn't throwing 102 anymore like he was in the first inning. And could have been the heat. He was throwing a lot of pitches. He was up over 40 through 2 innings while he was in that second inning. He was starting to labor a little bit out there. Now he says, Miserowski, and what he says, he's probably not trying to give, he does not want to give away the keys to the kingdom. He was like, no, I made some good pitches. They just made some good at-bats. Well, maybe that was the case, but he's given up 3 home runs so far. And yeah, all great pitchers, they go through stuff like this on their way to becoming great. And this is part of it. The outing he had, none of us should feel any differently about him. He wasn't going to go out there and throw 7 perfect innings and 5 perfect innings and shutout innings and keep doing what he had been doing every start. It's just not going to happen. These are major leaguers, man. And for what he's done so far, fantastic. He's 3-1. I'll take that. He's given up only a handful of hits so far. I'll take that too. Again, he's gonna look at this start, and the Brewer pitching coach Chris Hook and guys on that staff in the pitching department will look at this tape and they'll go over it with him. And they were talking about this in the broadcast as well, about how they give him some tough love. They tell him they in no uncertain terms that they do not cradle him whatsoever. Okay. They do not coddle him. Maybe that's a better word for it. Coddle him whatsoever. They give him some tough love, it sounds. And, he just had a bad outing. And he was out of there by the third inning, and that was it. Now, the Mets never really tacked on runs till later on in the game. Brewers made it 5-3, came up in the eighth inning, had the go-ahead run at the plate with Bowers, and he struck out to end the eighth inning. But, the Brewers got away with a split in that series, in that doubleheader with the Mets, and I'm fine with it. And Miserowski will make his next start. He's projected to go next Tuesday against Clayton Kershaw. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But that is when his scheduled next start is. But his delivery was a little off. He looked like he was a notch or two off. And that happens to athletes, especially young guys. They're not going to breeze right through everything, like I said. Murphy was asked, did he look a little off? And he said, yeah, maybe a little off. But apparently, Miserowski did not have a great bullpen. When he was warming up in the bullpen, sounds like he did not have a great bullpen. That doesn't always mean a whole heck of a lot. Sometimes you could be in the bullpen and you're throwing pitches and you're not throwing what you want to throw. And then you get out there on the mound and you're great. Like golf, you could be on the practice range and not have anything and get on the golf course and be great, or vice versa. Some days you could be, you could just be great in the bullpen and then come out and have nothing. In this case, sounds like he didn't have anything in the bullpen and he didn't have anything that translated to the mound as well. He was throwing 102, but Murph was talking after the game. Maybe he's better off at 98 with better command. He said 102 doesn't do you any good if you're not throwing it for strikes. And he was building up that high pitch count early. And the Mets were taking good approaches to him. They weren't fishing after some of those pitches, those outside pitches, arm side, outside pitches to the lefties. But the velo did drop off a little bit. He was getting up there in the pitch count. Hot night in New York, and the Mets won the game. Mets had been struggling. I thought, man, here's an opportunity. This Mets team looks terrible. Their fans were heckling Soto in the late innings in New York in that first game. And the fans, you could just tell, they had lost 13 of 17 after the Brewers won that first game today. And fans had had enough of it in New York. And you know how New York fans get. And they shouldn't. They paid a lot of money for some of those guys. And Brewers, I'm glad, at least got a split in the doubleheader. Okay, they won the first game. You'd like to get greedy and win both. It's tough winning a doubleheader. It's really tough to win both games. If you look at the day-night doubleheaders on Thursday, there were a couple of other ones. Philadelphia split its doubleheader with San Diego. The date night, they don't do back-to-back doubleheaders anymore like they used to. Now they want to get you in, get you out, and get a new gate in there for the night game. We'll never see that at AmFam Field because there's never any rain out, right? So there was that happened in Philadelphia, in Boston and Cincinnati. They split their day-night doubleheader, and they did it in New York as well. So fine. Yelich did hit his 17th home run. Went opposite field. A lot of, and I like that. He's going opposite field. Yeah, maybe some of that bat speed isn't what it once was, but he's taking opposite field, going home run, and he hit a solo shot there in the sixth inning. Churio hit his 14th of the year. Ziegler got his first hit. Now, he played both games. The Brewers are not afraid to throw a guy out there once they acquire him or he gets promoted from AAA. And this is a council thing, and this is a Murphy thing apparently as well. When somebody gets promoted to the team, they have no hesitation of throwing him out there. Remember, this all started with Eric Sogard back in 2017 or so. He got brought up, and right away they put him in the lineup, and I think he had a game-winning hit in his first night there. So the Brewers will do this. They don't want a guy sitting on the bench. They bring a guy up, they're going to put him in the lineup. They're going to somehow get him in the lineup. And Ziegler started both games switch hitter, and he had hit in the second game. Tapped out a few times in the first game, flew out, but we'll see more of him, I'm sure, in the days to come. But Durbin had a pinch hit appearance in the nightcap, but now I wonder what he's thinking, because he was playing everyday third baseman, and Ziegler gets called up, starts game one, starts game two. He did only have one hit though, so we'll see how that materializes. If Ziegler's if he's going to hit against righties, and then they keep Durbin for left-handed, they do a little platoon over at third base. I don't know how they're going to work it, but it was interesting. I didn't think Ziegler was going to start both games, but he did on Wednesday. Ortiz, by the way, hitting that grand slam in game one, 2-2 game, and after he bounces out into a double play, which Murph was not happy about. There are certain things that when you do not fundamentally do things right with Murphy, he gets real agitated at that, and he was very agitated, it sounds like, after Ortiz bounced into that bases loaded double play earlier in the game on Wednesday, and then he bounced back and hit a grand slam. Freddie, by the way, lost in the shuffle, not by me. 6 innings, 2 hits for Freddie Peralta. So the Brewers, again, they have one more with the Mets. They got a big series with Miami coming up this weekend. Miami finally got cooled off. Their 8-game winning streak came to an end. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Gametime, terrific sponsor. If you're looking for Brewers tickets, concert tickets, maybe you want to hit some of the festivals. They got concerts like Summerfest. Gametime has got them all. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices, as you know, they drop once you get closer to showtime because people want to get rid of their tickets. So those prices, like an hour inside of an hour before game time or a concert, those prices begin to drop. 60% off sometimes you can save. Killer last minute deals. You get them all on Gametime. You want to see where you're sitting. You're going to buy a seat. You're like, where am I going to sit? Well, you punch that seat on the map that's on the app, and it's going to show you exactly where you are seating. So it's all good. You take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. And right now, if you download the Gametime app, you create an account, you use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, you get $20 off your first purchase. You buy $100 worth of tickets, you get $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off. But you got to download the Gametime app. Again, great place to get tickets, especially when you get on game day on Gametime and that clock starts winding down there. Man, those ticket prices start to drop, especially for Brewer games. Trust me. Buddy of mine got $65 tickets right behind the first base dugout the other day. So get it all on Gametime. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Did I say happy 4th of July weekend? Great American holiday. Good to have you along here. And the Brewers are going to get Brandon Woodruff back officially on this great American holiday on July 6th, which would be Sunday in Miami. Ironically, that's the last time that Woodruff had pitched a game in Miami, September of 2023. It's come full circle for him. And now he's coming back nearly 2 years later, a couple of months short of 2 years later, and he's making his return after he had the labrum surgery back in 2023. Murphy kind of let the cat out of the bag in his pregame scrum with the media. And he said, it's not definite yet, but it looks like Woodruff is going to pitch on Sunday. So for the meantime, the Brewers are going to go with a 6-man rotation, at least for one turn. Patrick is still going to make his start on Saturday, and then Woodruff is going to make a start on Sunday. And there's a lot of players I know in that clubhouse very happy to see that Brandon Woodruff is going to make a return. I wish it was at home, to be honest with you, selfishly. I would love for him to make that return because he'd get a great ovation. The guy's put in a lot of work, a lot of work Okay. 32 years old. And, he wants to get back. There's a drive there to get back to the brand of Woodruff. That's an ace. Okay. And he's had a few setbacks. He's had 10 rehab starts this spring and summer. 10 rehab starts. He's come back from the elbow. He's come back from the ankle tendonitis as part of his rehab. And most of all, the labrum. The shoulder's not bothering him, and he is all ready to make a comeback on Sunday in Miami. And yeah, I wish he could do this next week when the Dodgers are here. Because I'd love to see him as he takes the mound, as he comes out of the bullpen and makes the start, gets a standing ovation from the crowd. That would be a really cool moment. I know it would happen because that's how great the fans are in Milwaukee. So Brandon Woodruff is going to make the start on Sunday in Miami. By the way, Clayton Kershaw, 3 strikeouts. He needed 3 strikeouts. Clayton Kershaw did to get the 3,000 strikeouts. And the reason why I'm saying this is Kershaw is going to pitch next Tuesday against Miserowski at AmFam Field. I was kind of hoping too that Kershaw, and he was going to get 3 strikeouts against the White Sox on Wednesday night, but I was kind of hoping that'd be a cool moment because there's been some historic moments that have happened baseball wise in Milwaukee, individual performances. Jose Canseco going 40-40, Ricky Henderson breaking the stolen base record, Lou Brock's stolen base record. Don Sutton for the Brewers got his 3,000th strikeout in Milwaukee. Nolan Ryan, his 300th win. There's been other moments as well, visiting and home. But I was kind of hoping to see Kershaw, first ballot Hall of Famer, get his 3,000th K in Milwaukee, even though he's pitching for the Dodgers. But I always like to applaud greatness, whether it's on the other team or especially if our team. But in the meantime, if he got those 3 Ks, I would love to see Kershaw get hit around a little bit by the Brewers. But he did get his 3 Ks, walked off the mound. I saw it happen in Dodger Stadium earlier on Wednesday night. But yeah, Don Sutton, 1983. It was one of the first games I covered since I was still in high school when he got his 3,000th strikeout. It was against the Cleveland Indians. They were called the Cleveland Indians at the time, June of 1983. Couple of other notes. Garrett Mitchell, shoulder surgery. Second time he's having shoulder surgery, out for the rest of the season. Now, he's going to be arbitration eligible at the end of the season. His agent is Scott Boros. I do not think the Brewers are going to tender him. It's my gut feeling. Remember, they didn't tender Brandon Woodruff a couple of years ago, although they ended up signing him anyway down the road. And this could be the case with Garrett Mitchell. This could be, I could be wrong on this, but I'm just taking a wild guess. I'd be surprised if they tendered Garrett Mitchell, a guy who's had so many injuries. And we're not just talking about the shoulder twice now. He's had the oblique, he's had knees, he's had the finger injury. He's had so many injuries. He can't play a full season. I have to believe that Garrett Mitchell will be non-tendered by the Brewers. Just a hunch. Would not surprise me at all. We'll see. I hope he can make a comeback, but these injuries are mounting up for the kid. They are. Will we ever be able to see his full potential? Because I was expecting a big year out of Garrett this year. I had high hopes for him being the everyday center fielder. But he just cannot stay healthy. Speaking of outfielders, Blake Perkins, he is soon ready to come off the injured list. He played for Nashville on Wednesday night, and he's ready to go. Although it sounds like he might stay down and be optioned to Nashville because Ike Collins had 4 hits in game 1 on Wednesday night. There's just no room for this guy on the roster. So Perkins could be staying down. What are you going to do? There's no roster spots. How about that? Blake Perkins, Gold Glove type outfielder, could be spending some time in AAA after his rehab down at AAA. They really love Ike Collins. I've said to this before. Ike Collins is not an everyday outfielder, but he's good while we have him. And Blake Perkins, to me, is a fourth outfielder anyway. I look at Blake Perkins as a defensive replacement, play some outfield from time to time. I do not want Blake Perkins playing every day. I do not think he's an everyday outfielder. There's been stretches where he can carry you for a week or two, if need be. But no, Blake Perkins, I'm not going to be sitting here, oh, God, Blake Perkins is down at AAA. We need to make a roster spot for him. None of us should be thinking that way. Blake Perkins is a fourth or a fifth outfielder. Defensively, he's a starter. Offensively, he's not an everyday player, in my opinion. I do got to make one correction. On my Monday Extra episode, I said I was talking about Frelick and Terang. They're both under team control through 2029. I think I said one of them was 2027, but they're both through 2029. I had erred on that, and I appreciate some of you guys for pointing that out. Through 2029 it is. And I forget which one I said was 2027. It might have been Terang, but nonetheless, both guys team control through 2029. But that doesn't change my opinion that both of those guys need to be on this team long term. And how about Frelick going yard to start the day on Wednesday? Let's solo home run. All right, we'll talk about what's coming up on Thursday. Final game in New York before heading off to Miami. And we'll take a look at the standings as well. See the Cubs won again. We'll get to that coming up next on this edition of Locked On Brewers. By the way, Locked On Brewers, you get us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. Wherever you download your podcast, we're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet because you great Brewer fans on there. Out there, you get us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. And, of course, our growing YouTube page. Hit us up on YouTube. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. And down the stretch we come here on Locked On Brewers. Supply House is a great sponsor of Locked On Brewers. Guys down the street, my neighborhood here, and I do this out of my studio in my house here, this podcast. And, of course, you can see it all on YouTube. Guys in my neighborhood, hardworking guys who there's plumbers, guys who do electrical work, HVAC, all in my neighborhood. I've turned them on the Supply House, a reliable way to order products online. Easy to use website, complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 of the top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need an order, need help with an order? Well, they got great customer service. You're always going to get a real person on the phone line. Join their free Trade Master program, offering exclusive perks, dedicated phone line, free shipping, discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals already taking part, and you can as well. Join the Trade Master program today. Supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering your plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use that promo code SH5. You'll get 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com. All right. Brewers play their final game in New York against the Mets. I think the Brewers are going to win this game coming up Thursday night. Quintana's on the mound against his former mates. David Peterson, a big lefty, about 6'6". He's 5-4 on the year, a 3.30 earned run average. The Mets had lost 14 of 18 after that game. Game one of that doubleheader on Wednesday. Something's not clicking with the Mets. Something just isn't right. I've been watching them for the last week on the MLB package, and I think this is still a time to get them while they're down. So hopefully the Brewers can go in there and squeeze out a win heading into Miami Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Rarely do you see this. Night game on Thursday, followed by a night game on Friday. I would have thought Thursday would have been an afternoon game with the Mets in New York because it's getaway day. Usually your final game in a visiting season in a visiting town is an afternoon game. That's why it's called getaway day, because you get on your plane about 6 o'clock and you head to the next city. But in this case, the Brewers won't be getting into Miami till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they'll play at night. The Brewers are 3 games behind the Cubs, who got down early against Cleveland, rallied for a win over the Guardians. They've won 2 in a row over them. So the Brewers stay 3 games out. St. Louis is, I don't think St. Louis scored a run this week against Pittsburgh, right? The Pirates have won 6 in a row. And I believe the Pirates shut them out in all 3 of those games, if I'm not mistaken. I think they shut them out in all 3 of those games. I know they won 5-0 on Wednesday. I believe, 1-0 on Tuesday and 7-0, I want to say, on Monday, off the top of my head. So St. Louis is 5 games out. Cincinnati split a day-night doubleheader, as I mentioned, with Cincinnati. They're 6.5 out. Milwaukee's still 3 games behind the Cubs heading into this game against New York coming up on Thursday night. Again, we will be here. We will be here. Yes, indeed. Hey, Miserowski, we knew things were going to be like that. It was not going to be all easy for the Miz. Hey, even Skeens has a rough one from time to time. And he got taken up at the learning curve a little bit. He's going to have to make an adjustment, and he'll be just fine. Don't think any less of the guy just because he had a rough outing. Gave a couple gopher balls, but he's going to be great, and he's going to be a man at the top of this rotation for time to time. For the rest of the season, they were talking on the broadcast. Vinny was talking about that they might use him out of the pen for a little bit because they want to conserve his arm. I was mentioning this a couple of podcasts ago that they want to conserve. They're very watchful on young guys and their arms and all that. You know, they don't treat pitchers like they did in the 70s and 80s and just let the kid go out there and pitch. So he may skip a start or 2 and be used out of the bullpen from time to time for this first year. They are very careful not to compile a lot of innings and a lot of pitches out of Jake Misiorowski. We'll see how they manage that. In the meantime, have yourself a great July 3rd today. If you have the day off and the weekend, my friend, we will again talk to you early on the 4th of July with our next episode of Locked On Brewers. My name is Chuck Freeman. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube. It's all free. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell that alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Have yourself a great weekend, everybody.